Hello friends, we're going to do something a little bit different today. NoiseGate is no longer a channel that reviews audio gear, we are reviewing premium luggage. I have Universal Audio's answer to Louis Vuitton in front of me, and we're going to see how this stacks up when you go on a trip. Nah. This is the newest mic from UA's BOCK line. This is the BOCK 251, and good Lord, I am a massive fan of this. Starting with the box itself. It is indeed a suitcase, heavy duty. I was a fan of the BOCK 167's case, but I tell you what, the case for the 251, far more regal, far more fancy. I felt like a better engineer when I just picked it up and took it out of the box. No skill required on that one. So pretty nice. So let's have a look what's under the hood here.
Vincent, we happy?
Yeah, we happy.
We can see we've got a nice little compartment for everything. We have a hole for our power cable. We've got a hole for our shock mount, and I'll get back into this because it is probably one of my favorite features of this mic is what they've done with this one. We've got the power supply, and that beautifully matches our microphone. I'll crack that open, and you can see it's the same color. It looks great. Another thing they've got in here is an info card, and we'll also have a look at the mic while I'm doing that because we're all here for the microphone, not the info card or the box or any of this loveliness. So on the card, you've got instructions on how to set up the BOCK 251 properly. This is important. I highly recommend you read it because there is a right and a wrong way to set up a tube mic and pack down a tube mic. And if you do it the wrong way, you risk damaging it. And this is not a cheap microphone, so you definitely don't want to hurt it because it is lovely. We've also got some history behind BOCK microphones, and you've got a little bit of specifications. By a little bit, I mean there's a lot here. I'm not going to drill down through everything, but what you need to know is that it has cardioid, omnidirectional, and figure 8 polar patterns, and the frequency response is 10 Hz to 18 kHz, and that's at plus minus 2 dB. So that's pretty impressive for it to be able to go down to that depth and pick up all that rich bass frequency. You don't see that very often in mics, so I reckon that's pretty cool. All right, now we've gone through all that, I'm going to pop this back in its home for a second because there was one little feature that I am yet to mention with this lovely case, and I promise it's the last thing I'm going to say about the suitcase. You got a little compartment here which actually holds the audio cable that runs from the power supply to the microphone, and that also really nice to see because sometimes the hard thing about tube mics is when you're packing them up and you have to repack everything exactly how it came in the box, and that can be a bit of a pain, especially when it comes to cables. But UA providing all this extra space, they've made it a bit easier, and you'll look like a pretty cool engineer rolling in with this suitcase. I just want to touch on what I mentioned earlier, like the few little design things that they've included that I haven't seen before with the tube mic, or really any mic, that really tickled my fancy. I'm a bit of a mic nerd, so you might not find it as interesting as I do, but for those of you who do like microphones, definitely listen to this because it's pretty cool. First thing is the audio cable. It actually isn't your traditional tube mic cable where you just plug it in, or say any audio cable, XLR, where you plug it in. It has these screw locks so you can lock it into both the microphone and the power supply. Pretty cool, makes it nice and secure, and you've got a bit of peace of mind when you're hooking everything else up. The other feature that I have really enjoyed is what they've done with the shock mount. Other microphones, usually how they do it is you'll put the mic into the shock mount and there'll be a little kind of screw washer on the bottom, and that's how it'll tighten to the shock mount. But with this one, it actually has latches. So what you can do is you put the mic in and you close these two latches, and it'll grip the microphone without you needing to screw anything else in or do anything like that. It's really quick and easy. And they've also got this really nice thick felt lining on the inside, so it's going to protect your mic. You're not going to have metal rubbing on metal. But I would guess, using my limited audio engineering knowledge, that felt there also would act as a diffuser of vibration, and that means less noise will be traveling up the stand through the shock mount to the microphone. You're going to get really nice isolation out of it. So I've talked about the features that I like. I've talked about what's in the box. I was lucky enough to actually take this mic for a spin, recording some vocals. It is incredible. I could not believe how natural everything came out, and without any processing at all. I literally had the mic running directly into my Volt interface, and it sounded amazing. Like I'd already done EQ, compression, all that kind of stuff. Like I'd already mixed it, but that was just the mic sound. And it held up really well on the vocals, on male vocals. I got clarity and I got grit, but I also had that warmth from the tube. And it was just a pleasure. It was surprising to me even more so because I did the same for the BOCK 167 and that blew me away. And I was like, wow, this is actually probably the best vocal mic I've used. BOCK 167, sorry mate, move on over because the 251 is now my favorite microphone to use on vocals. It does have a limit of 118 dB for the SBL limit. So I would say that you couldn't really use it on super loud instruments like say close miking a drum kit or any kind of horns. However, when it comes to vocals, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a mic which does as much justice as the BOCK 251 to faithfully recreating what you hear out of a vocal. And I also think that judging by that, it would be great on acoustic instruments. I reckon on a steel string guitar, it would absolutely sing because you're looking for the same things when you're recording an acoustic guitar because you want to have the clarity as well as the warmth and punch that you get from the tube circuits. For those of you who never really laid eyes on a tube mic before, I can imagine you'd be looking at this green box and be like, what the hell is that? This is actually very common for tube mics. It is the power supply. To have a tube microphone, it's far too much circuitry to fit in the microphone itself, so they need to have this external power supply. This is another kind of interesting thing about the BOCK 251. I've been lucky to use a few different tube mics in my life, and almost all of them have had a pickup pattern selector or polar pattern selector on the power supply itself. With the 251, it's not the case. It's actually on the mic right here above the emblem. Now this is pretty sweet because, I mean, it's nice to be able to spin the dial and feel like you're doing something. Having that tactile thing is a nice touch for tube mics, but this is easier. If you're trying to change the polar pattern, all you have to do is walk up to the mic, give it a flick to the left or the right, and you've changed your polar pattern. And you've got 3 here to play with, so you'll have a few different sounds. As I mentioned in the BOCK 167 video as well, is that when you change the polar pattern of a mic, you do actually change the frequency response. So you'll have a bit of sonic characteristics to play around with depending on what polar pattern you choose on what instrument. We've had a look at it, I've talked to you about it, I've told you my opinions. Tube mics aren't gonna be for everyone, and especially if you don't have the capital to kind of get one like this, because this is the creme de la creme of UA's tube mic range. However, if I was serious about engineering and I was serious about getting the best, especially vocal recordings that I could, I would probably save up and go for this one. I've used a lot of different mics now on vocals, including Neumann U47s, AKG C414s, even the BOCK 187, 167. And sure, those are all fantastic microphones. I will never poo-poo them because they're all good at what they do. But how I felt after listening to what this could do on vocals, it was a no-brainer. So if you're looking to drop some money on a great workhorse mic that's going to be good for your softer instruments and your vocals, highly recommend the BOCK 251. Not just because of how the mic sounds, but to go back to the start of the video, and I did promise I wouldn't talk about the case, but I'm going to do it anyway. It coming in a case like this, really, really nice. A lot of tube mics, they all come with a case that has to hold everything. You can see there's a lot more going on here than just a normal mic, but usually they're all pretty flimsy or they're just not aesthetically pleasing. Like the 167, that was not a flimsy case, but it's a grey box. It's just a bit more utilitarian. This makes a statement. Let us know in the comments how you feel about tube mics and let us know what your favorite tube mic is. I'm always keen to hear what you think. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you next time.